It begins with something small, so small that most people would ignore it. A man in a quiet kitchen slices bread with a knife. His hand slips slightly, and the blade cuts across his finger. It's not deep, just a thin line of red appearing on the skin. In our world, this would mean nothing. Wash it, cover it, forget it. But in this world, everything changes the moment the skin breaks, because there are no antibiotics, not pills, not injections, not even the idea of them. Bacteria exist, infection exists, but there is no simple way to stop it. First, the man doesn't worry. He rinses the cut, wraps it with cloth, and continues his day, just like everyone has done for thousands of years. Because humans have always been injured, always healed, or at least tried to. But 2 days later, something feels wrong. The skin around the wound turns red, warmer than the rest of his hand, swollen. He notices it, but still it doesn't seem serious. By the 3rd day, the redness spreads. A dull pressure builds inside the finger. Still not pain that stops him, but something uncomfortable, something growing. By the 4th day, the swelling worsens. The skin tightens. Heat radiates from the wound. And now the pain begins. Sharp, deep, constant. His body is fighting something it cannot control. Because without antibiotics, infection is no longer a small problem. It is a threat, a real one. Across the world, millions of similar stories unfold. A child falls and scrapes their knee. A woman cuts herself while cooking. A worker injures his hand at a job site. In another world, these are minor events. In this one, they are risks, because once bacteria enter the body, there is no easy way to stop them. Hospitals exist, doctors exist, but their tools are limited. They clean wounds, they remove damaged tissue, they try to stop the spread manually, but they cannot kill infection inside the body, not effectively, not reliably, and that changes everything. Within days, hospitals begin filling, not with severe injuries, with small ones, cuts, scrapes, burns, things that should be harmless, but are not. Doctors examine patients with growing concern, because they know what comes next. If the infection spreads, it can enter the bloodstream, and once it does, the body begins to fail. Fever rises, organs weaken, strength disappears, and there is very little they can do to stop it. Meanwhile, fear begins spreading. Not loud, not immediate, but quiet, constant, because people begin understanding something simple. The body is no longer protected. Every injury carries risk. Every wound matters, even the smallest one. Daily life changes almost instantly. People move more carefully. Knives are handled with caution. Tools are used slowly. Work becomes more deliberate, because mistakes are no longer small. They can become fatal. Children are watched closely. Parents warn them constantly. Be careful. Don't fall. Don't get hurt. Because now those words carry real weight. A small accident is no longer a lesson. Can be the beginning of something worse. Meanwhile, medicine struggles. Doctors rely on older methods. Cleaning, isolation, observation, sometimes amputation, because removing infected tissue becomes the only way to save a life. A finger, a hand, a limb. Better to lose part of the body than lose everything. Surgery becomes brutal, not because doctors want it to be, but because they have no other option. Infections that could have been treated with a simple pill now require extreme measures. And even then, survival is not guaranteed. At the same time, something deeper begins changing. Trust in the body disappears. In our world, the human body heals. It fights infection. It recovers. But here, recovery is uncertain. Because once infection takes hold, the body is alone. And often, it loses. Meanwhile, society begins adapting. Cleanliness becomes essential. More than ever before, people wash constantly. Surfaces are cleaned repeatedly. Wounds are treated immediately. Precautions become part of daily life. Because prevention is the only defense. There is no cure, only avoidance. And that creates a different kind of world. More careful, more controlled, more aware of danger, but also more fragile. Because life depends on avoiding something that cannot be seen. Bacteria are invisible, but their effects are not. And as more people begin experiencing the consequences, something becomes clear. This is not a rare problem. It is constant, every day, everywhere, because infection is part of life. It always has been. The only difference is that now there is no simple way to stop it. And as the first wave of infections spreads through a world without antibiotics, humanity begins to understand something it never fully appreciated before. Survival was never guaranteed. It was supported, protected, helped by something they did not even think about. A simple pill, a small discovery, and without it, the world becomes more dangerous than it looks. Because now, even the smallest mistake can grow into something that cannot be stopped. At first, people learn to be careful. They clean wounds immediately. They avoid unnecessary risks. They move slower, think before acting, because survival now depends on prevention. But no matter how careful humans become, they cannot avoid everything, because infection is not rare. It is everywhere, on skin, on surfaces, in the air, in the smallest unnoticed places. And that means danger is constant. Within weeks, something deeper begins changing. Hospitals are no longer places of guaranteed recovery. They become places of uncertainty, because without antibiotics, doctors cannot promise healing. They can only try. They clean wounds more aggressively. They remove damaged tissue earlier. They isolate patients. But once infection spreads beyond control, there is very little they can do. Patients begin to understand this, and that changes trust, because medicine no longer feels powerful. It feels limited, fragile, uncertain. Meanwhile, surgery becomes one of the most dangerous procedures in the world. In our reality, surgery is controlled, safe, supported by antibiotics that prevent infection. In this world, every operation carries a serious risk. Even a simple procedure can become fatal, because opening the body creates an entry point, and once bacteria enter, there is no reliable way to stop them. Doctors hesitate, patients hesitate. Many procedures are avoided entirely, because the risk is too high. This changes medicine completely. Complex surgeries disappear. Organ transplants never develop. Many treatments that require invasive procedures simply do not exist, because the body cannot be safely opened, and that affects survival. Diseases that could be treated become permanent. Injuries that could be repaired remain untreated. Life expectancy decreases, not suddenly, but steadily. Meanwhile, childbirth becomes one of the most dangerous moments in life. Without antibiotics, infection during birth is a constant threat. For the mother, for the child, even small complications can lead to serious outcomes. Hospitals do everything they can. Clean environments, careful procedures, but they cannot eliminate the risk. And that changes how people see life itself. Birth is no longer just a beginning. It is a risk. Meanwhile, something else begins spreading. Fear of hospitals. Because hospitals are places where infection exists. Many patients are sick. Wounds are open. Bacteria are present. Without antibiotics, entering such an environment carries danger. Some people avoid treatment altogether, choosing to stay at home, because the risk of infection feels too high, and that makes outcomes worse, because untreated conditions become more severe. Meanwhile, society begins adapting in new ways. Hygiene becomes one of the most important parts of life. Clean water, clean surfaces, clean environments. People build systems to reduce exposure. Cities are designed differently. More space, better sanitation, less crowding, because density increases risk. Schools teach children about infection early, not as a theory, but as a daily reality. How to clean wounds, how to avoid contamination, how to recognize danger, because knowledge becomes survival. At the same time, something else changes. Human behavior. People become more cautious, less impulsive, more aware of consequences, because small mistakes matter. A simple cut is not ignored. A burn is treated seriously. Risk is calculated. Every action carries weight. But this also creates something else. Limitation. People take fewer risks. Exploration slows. Dangerous environments are avoided because survival depends on caution, and caution reduces movement. Meanwhile, war becomes even more destructive, not just because of weapons, but because of infection. Injuries that would normally be survivable become fatal. Wounds become infected. Recovery becomes uncertain. Armies lose more soldiers to infection than to battle itself. Because without antibiotics, the aftermath of injury is as dangerous as the injury itself. And this changes conflict. War becomes something people fear even more, because survival after injury is not guaranteed. At the same time, something deeper begins changing in how humans see their own bodies. The body is no longer something that can recover easily. It is vulnerable, sensitive, dependent on conditions, and this creates a different mindset. People respect their bodies more, protect them more, because damage is harder to repair. Meanwhile, over time, humanity begins searching for alternatives, natural remedies, new treatments, different methods of controlling infection. Some progress is made, but nothing replaces antibiotics completely, because antibiotics were unique. They directly attacked infection inside the body. Without them, all solutions are indirect, limited, incomplete, and that leaves a gap, permanent one. As years pass, humanity adapts, survives, continues, but life is different, more careful, more fragile, more aware of invisible danger, because infection never disappears. It is always present, waiting for a moment, a small mistake, a simple injury. And as people live in this world, one truth becomes clear. The greatest danger is not always what you can see. Sometimes it is what enters quietly and cannot be stopped. And without antibiotics, that danger is no longer rare. It is part of everyday life, constant risk, a silent threat that turns even the smallest wound into something that can decide everything.